I have the pleasure now of introducing our first ever keynote speaker. Andrew Garner is not a man from our world. Andrew has helped fashion the boardrooms across the world in some of the greatest companies. He's a businessman with a truly outstanding global pedigree. Today, he will talk to us about something relevant to every single one of us here today, winning business. And perhaps more importantly, putting a winning bid team together. This is a subject he's well qualified to speak about, having helped Silverstone secure a 17-year deal to host the British Grand Prix. Please put your hands together and welcome to the stage, Mr. Andrew Garner.
It's always interesting when you arrive at a stage like this to see what music they play you into. I was at Leicester on Friday night doing an awards presentation, and I was scared stiff that because it was Leicester, they were going to play me into Engelbert Humperdinck singing his song for the European Song Contest. They didn't do that, but the fact that we've got Queen there is very nice. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very proud to be here for a couple of reasons. One, I am not in any way, other than as a consumer, competent to talk to you about what you do. And therefore, my remarks today, with your permission, are going to fall into two categories. The first one is an external appraisal of the pitch that you're playing on, all of you. And the second one is to do what I was asked to do, which is to talk to you about putting a bid team together to present a winning bid. May I therefore do that? Can I ask you, however, because you are not a homogeneous audience, would you just give me a clue as to which of you, by raising your hands please, who's from insurance? Raise your hands. Who's from repairers? Who's from solicitors? Right. Now listen, my remarks today are not designed to challenge or offend anybody. It's a pleasure to be here and to share with you in the second part of what I do, which will comprise the majority of what I say. Therefore, I'm going to expose myself to at least 10 minutes worth of questions afterwards. Therefore, if I do upset you in any manner of means, which is not my intention, it will be from ignorance that I do that. Please don't hesitate to come back to me and say you got that wrong or what. I must say, when I was asked to do this, I found the title of the conference somewhat ironic, because it's only you in this room that like claims. We the people that you look after, right, and it's a legal obligation for us to be insured from a motoring point of view, we hate the bloody stuff. You're all a pain in the arse. So how can you come here and celebrate, right, loving claims? What was also fascinating, with a little veneer, thin veneer of research, is you don't even like one another. So I don't like you, and you don't like one another. Why the hell am I here? I could be picking my nose or reading the newspaper. Right, to horse, because I've only got a few minutes to talk about the pitch that we're playing on. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not in double-dip recession. Why do I say that? Because there's no econometric model or statistic basis to prove that. We won't discuss that. It is a fact. We are not. There are parts of this country of ours, I'm talking about the United Kingdom, that live permanently in recession. And there are other parts that don't. Why am I drawing attention to this? Because the media is a blasted nuisance. The media in this country, indeed the media generally, right, for the whole of the 20th century are probably the most important event that took place. Because the world over, the media became the opposition. And it always had the last word. Last week, statistics seemed to prove, and this was quite remarkable when you think about it, that within 23 days, including weekends, of the end of the first 13 weeks of this year, somebody was able to say that GDP had gone down by 0.2%. 0.2% of what, ladies and gentlemen? Can I give you a statistic? The Chinese economy is growing by the size of the Greek economy every 3 weeks. So let's put all of this into context. But what does the announcement of double dip mean? It means we all panic. We all begin to think we better change tactics in what we do. Leave it at that. The most important event in your lives, ladies and gentlemen, and over the next few days, is the outcome of the French presidential election. Why? Because it's odds on that a socialist is going to win that. And I'm not using the word socialist in a pejorative sense. He calls himself a socialist. Will you please put your hands up, those people who know where socialism has won? Where it has succeeded? Nowhere. But the French population is so dish-chuffed with its leadership and with that of Europe that it's prepared to polarize in its political opinion. Ladies and gentlemen, if France tries to spend its way out of trouble, we've got a problem here. We've got a problem here. I'm not going to ask you to put your hands up again, but how many people in this room are worried about the outcome of the French presidential election? It will be very few of you. It's a major issue. Today, we're having by-elections in this country. We're also having mayoral elections. How important are they? To us, to you in business, massively. How many of you are going to vote? Probably no more than 30%. Which means, are you disinterested? And if you did vote, who will you be voting for? I'll tell you, teachers, council workers, and social workers. They provide the platform upon which we in business have to ply our trade. One of the things I'm going to plead with you to do, therefore, is not to regard politics as somebody else's problem and we'll cope with it. Get involved. Because the people who are running politics in this country and across Europe are a complete waste of space. We talk about the financial crisis as if it was created by banks. The financial crisis, ladies and gentlemen, that pervades Europe in particular, was created by politicians and topped up and made worse by banks. And you know what? We're now in a situation, ladies and gentlemen, where politicians have created a situation that they don't know how to solve. So what are they trying to do? Legislate. And there's some congruence there between what many of you are now waiting for, and I'll come back to this in a minute, which is you're now waiting for legislation to address the issue of fraud. You waited a flaming long time for that to happen. And who's your banner carrier? Somebody who's now on the back benches of the opposition party. Melvin King gave a lecture last night. Did he not? Any of you listen to it? Very interesting. Thank you kindly for you at the back there. Right, very interesting. We didn't get it right. How long has he been in power as the Governor of the Bank of England? Flaming long time. You can't be forgiven for that. Who are we going to replace him with? We don't know. The newspapers only a few weeks ago were suggesting that somebody from Canada might do that. Is that a good idea? It's probably as good an idea as having Roy Hodgson on a shortlist of one, to become the new England football manager. My life is about shortlists, ladies and gentlemen. I might be very good at what I do. But I'd never get away with presenting a shortlist of one. Tesco. What can we all learn from Tesco? Some very interesting things, ladies and gentlemen. They, as the brand leader in supermarketing in this country, one of the largest companies in the world, don't look so good right now, do they? And what have they done? They've gone international. They made a huge success of going east. They made a complete cock-up of going west. And they've ignored Tom Tiddler's ground, which is here. They've conned us disloyally. They've conned us for a generation now in saying, every little helps. They haven't helped at all, because they've portrayed themselves as lowering prices, and we all know perfectly well that they haven't done that. And where is their new landscape? It's in the corner shop. So they've run the corner shop out of town, right? And now they're replacing them. It's very interesting, that. So why should I mention prices? Because prices is what's killing you lot. which is why you don't agree with one another. Price, ladies and gentlemen, generally only goes down. But if you look at the success stories in the bigger world, that is not true. Who is, ladies and gentlemen, the market leader in home delivery of grocery? Waitrose. What are Tesco now thinking of doing, because they rank number 5, would you believe, is they're now going to charge for home delivery instead of providing it free. They're going to charge a monthly fee of 10 quid. Who therefore are the real successes in commerce? Why don't we start with Apple? Are they the cheapest? No. Are they technologically the best? No. They're the prize winner of all time in selling sizzle as opposed to steak. The Apple proposition's got nothing to do with price. I had my iPhone repaired, having bought another one for myself, not knowing how long it would take them to repair it. They repaired it on the spot and charged me 70 quid. I could have got it for nothing. I could have got it somebody else's for nothing. But I'm viewed with the idea that my iPad, my iPhone, my God knows what are the things to have. Am I price sensitive about that? No. Now you look at me and you say, oh, but you can afford it anyway. Go and sit in the Apple store in Regent Street in London, ladies and gentlemen, and see if it's populated with people that earn what I earn, live where I live, and do what I do. No, it's not. Travel on the London Underground and see who's got all this expensive kit. It's not people that do what I do for a living. So, that being the case, why have you allowed, this is where I'm going to offend somebody, price comparison sites to bomb your business? Why have you allowed that? What are you doing about getting rid of them? One, they annoy me intensely as a viewer of television. Right? So you'd be doing me a favour in that regard. You know what? I even contemplated giving up watching Formula 1 when ITV had got it, because I couldn't stand any longer, right, comparethemarket.com. What do price comparison sites do, ladies and gentlemen? They destroy brand loyalty. And yet each of you in your way, whether you're a repairer, a solicitor, or an insurance company, are trying to build brand loyalty. But what do comparethemarket.com and their friends depend entirely upon? Disloyalty. Shopping around all of the time. And therefore, if you look at the pitch that you're playing on, right, what have we got in summary? The economic climate is being driven by the people from the asylum that are running the asylum. Right? Secondly, most people in business think that politics in one form or another is for somebody else. If we in business don't shove some of these civil servants, school teachers and social workers out of the way so that we have some role to play in how our economy works, we're going to have to live with the consequences. Thirdly, the digital era and pushing price downwards and creating disloyalty is going to get us nowhere. And there are value propositions out there to which in a Q&A session I can draw your attention. In some ways, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who depend upon insurance in one form or another belong to a broken paradigm. Insurance has failed to provide adequate retirement, and it's now failing to provide adequate cover against something which is not discretional, which is we have to have cover in order to drive a motor car or a motor vehicle of any kind. Let me therefore talk, if I may, about bids. And I'm going to start off by illustrating from a very recent experience of mine, and I'll put some numbers on it, but I won't tell you who the client is. I was invited recently to pitch for a PLC CEO replacement, which included the assessment of the top management team within the business to see whether we should go outside or inside, and then to recruit a new deputy chairman who could step up to chairman. The value of that work and that which would follow from it, £250,000. Therefore, we're not talking small money here, right? I was in a beauty parade, I won. The client feedback on the face-to-face presentation was, Andrew, it looked even Stevens. The written proposal you put forward clinched it. Why did it clinch it? My rivals went back to their office and said to their PAs, right, paragraph 3, paragraph 7, paragraph 10, da-da-da-da-da-da, dear sir, here's our price, thanks a lot. I went back to my office and thought, I'm in a commoditized market, so are all of you. How now can I differentiate my proposition? Last night, and by the way, I don't work on anything other than retainers, so I don't do anything contingently, nothing at all. Last night, I presented my shortlist and my appraisal of internal management. The CEO said to me as we left, and this was at 10 o'clock last night, he said, Andrew, we've had so much fun, we would not have had the same fun from the people with whom you competed. It wasn't because I tell jokes, because quite clearly I don't do that. It was because of the added value that was construed within the written proposal and then the delivery. Last night, they couldn't stop discussing the proposals, the observation that I made about their internal management, whether they should go outside or not. I discounted entirely going outside because that looked as though I was serving my own interests. So, how about price? I was more expensive. I was significantly more expensive. They still chose me, and they chose me because of the way I had constructed what I perceived to be the added value of what I would do. Let me now quickly take you through, therefore, some basic tenets of pitching and put the right bid team together. I'll whiz through this, if I may, giving you the opportunity to say, load of charge, good idea, expand that, or whatever it might be. When you are asked to present a bid, the first lesson is to do exactly what you've been asked to do. Exactly what you've been asked to do. The most annoying thing is when somebody interprets a pitch, right, their way. That's not what they were asked to do. In my world, right, I might well have an opinion during the course of my work that they should contemplate something else. That has to come as an extra. You have to deliver what you were asked to do. And there is something very important about the presentation itself. And I'll come to how you do that in a minute. And it's an old saw. And it goes, tell them what you're going to tell them, i.e. summarize up front. Tell them, and then tell them what you told them. That may seem very boring. You'll be amazed how that doesn't work. You'd be amazed how people bog down the very essence of what they're trying to do by what I'm crudely going to refer to as process, and I can come to that in just a second. Know your competition. You must always be aware when you're putting in a pitch, whoever you are for whatever you're doing, not just what pitch am I playing on, not just what have they asked me to do, but who am I competing against? And you have to embed in your presentation a difference. Now, I talked a little while ago about brand disloyalty, right? Each of us in our own world is promoting our own brand. Whether you're a repairer, I had to look around earlier to see if John the Bodge was in the room. You're not here, John, are you? No, he was one of the first vehicle repairers that I had dealings with, known throughout the community as John the Bodge. John the Bodge, however, where I live, John the Bodge had created his own brand. People were going to have a coffee with John the Bodge. He always had some nice kit in there. There'd be an Aston or a Ferrari, as well as a Ford Cortina or whatever it was. So, the whole essence of brand management is to promote your difference. If, therefore, you don't, within the context of a proposal, embed something in it which you judge to be uniquely yours, and if you don't work out what is uniquely yours, you're a commodity. Now, when you're doing a personal presentation, last time I'm going to ask you to raise your hands, how many of you would know what I was talking about if I used the following initials: A, I, N, D, C. None of you. That's fine. The essence of every presentation you'll ever make, particularly if you're doing it up front, as I'm doing to you now, is attention, interest, need, want, close. Attention, interest, need, want, close. Those are the sequences through which a presentation takes place. You will find it compellingly easy to miss out the attention and interest, to assume they have a need, and that that need is a want. And you'll all be frightened of closing, because we all are. We very rarely, any of us, have got confidence at the end of a presentation, whatever it is, to say, right, are we going to go ahead now? What colour would you like? Earlier on you thought, you said you were oriented this way. Have we now brought this together? Attention, interest, need, want, close. PowerPoint. How many of you use PowerPoint presentations? Bless you. Oh, come on. A lot of you. I had an experience recently which briefly I'll share with you. It's been my great privilege to teach at business schools from Harvard to Tokyo, and to have been doing that relentlessly now since 1986. I was at business school this time last year in this country, and the dean said, it's great that you're here today. Would you like to sit in on some of the presentations that are being done by MBA students, right, to companies who are here potentially to employ them as interns as part of their course? I'd love that. So I went and watched. What then happened was very interesting. Disney and DreamWorks would have been bowled over by the quality of the slides, the dress, the appearance, the whole damn thing. I wouldn't have employed any of them. And you know why? Content was rubbish. The content was rubbish because what they needed to say to an employer, a potential employer, even as an intern, was, he's going to go for an interview now. What they needed to say was, we have done some research. It might not be spot on, but we've done some research, and we think that over the period of the next few weeks, right, we could come to this conclusion, which we think you might find helpful and ergo value for money. What did they do? We'll arrive on the Monday morning and we'll do this and this and this and this and this and this and this, right? No beginning, no middle, no end. But that's not the rub. I then, last November, stood in front of 140 people at that very same business school and related this story to them. Right? That if you're going to do a PowerPoint presentation, for Christ's sake, add some value. Say something. Take that risk. Guess what? They all had to do an essay on Andrew Garner's presentation. You got the job then? Well done. They all had to do an essay on Andrew Garner's presentation. And the school came back to me and said, would you, Andrew, like to see the essays? I said, yes, please. They sent me 140. Do you know the dominant themes of that? We didn't quite get why Andrew didn't do a PowerPoint presentation. Huh? Now, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, this is supposed to be the intelligentsia. And they're not. They're a bunch of exam passers. So, always when you're talking about PowerPoint presentations, it has its role to play, but you will instantly, I promise you, differentiate yourself from your competitors if you are bold enough to pose a problem and a solution, not a process. Because most people in this world are using them to portray, not betray, the blindingly obvious. Now, I'm going to close in a minute. A few rules. Less is always more. Now, I didn't invent that phrase, but if you can compact into a pithy little space, that's THY, pithy little space, what you are proposing, right? And you have thought about that beforehand, that is much more interesting than somebody that takes 10 pages. So, less is more. Bid team. This is very interesting. Your boss is not necessarily the right person either to put the bid together or to front it. I've seen that time and time again. So choose wisely who is going to prepare a bid, whether it's written or presented, doesn't matter, same rules apply. The governor is not necessarily the right person to do it. You want somebody who will do the research and somebody who will prepare the document. They're not the same thing. You want somebody who will decide, finally, again, not necessarily the boss, what is the essence of what you're doing. This could well be a pricing decision. Last but not least, if you're on stage, if you're presenting something big, it might not apply to all of you in this room. Rehearse it. Rehearse it, rehearse it, rehearse it. Because the performance so often will eclipse the content. You know what, in my world, and candidates don't get this, and some of you may well be candidates in my paradigm. Funnily enough, I came into the room today and saw RSA. One of the most outstanding people in your world is Andy Haste, right, who recently stepped down from the CEO's job at RSA. I remember Andy Haste. Why? Because he was a candidate of mine, right? I put him forward, I think in 2002, right, on a short list of 3, to run reporting into the Chief Executive Officer, the bank assurance business for what was HBOS. And he didn't get it. He got a better job, actually, as history will show, in getting hold of RSA. Well, I've lost my thread now. Where was I at? Right, rehearse. It's a bit sad when that gets the best laugh of the show, isn't it? Right, rehearse. What was the difference between the pitch that I referred to, right, and the success that it had? It was because in my own way, I left the verbal presentation, the showmanship, and I'm much better looking than the people that I was competing against, but that didn't win the day. What won the day was I went back to my office and thought, right, how am I going to beat them? How am I going to beat them? What's the essence here? Right? And then last night when I was on show, right, what did I go in and say? I recommend passionately, and I meant this with absolute sincerity, for reasons I can't share with you, I recommend passionately you don't recruit from outside. But the people on the inside are not good enough, any one of them, to take the CEO's job at this well-regarded PLC. Therefore, what you've got to do is not recruit 1 new non-executive director, you've got to recruit 2 if you're now going to mentor and coach somebody who's not yet up to the job. This morning, the nominations committee of that board is debating whether to go outside. Now you could say, self-serving so-and-so, you wanted the search in the first place. That was not my advice, and I didn't mind. Because if they promoted the CFO, become the CEO, I would have got that search. If they hired 2 non-executive directors out of my shortlist rather than 1, I get that. The answer's a lemon. They valued the advice, and the advice came out of research, right, and thinking, how do I promote my difference? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.